cove at the base of a mountain on a hill above two streams.
Because all the people I knew and talked to were white.
Because all the native people who had lived in these mountains 3 centuries before, who would have outnumbered those of us living here now, before Andrew Jackson signed the Indian Removal Act, before they were rounded up and marched by bayonet point to Oklahoma.
Because whenever I heard the word Indian, the first thing that popped into my head were those chubby guys from Cherokee who stood on the side of the road in red and yellow plains headdresses, gripping spears and holding feathered shields.
Because Tonto.
Because plastic tomahawks.
Because once upon a time, I liked to sing along to the song, What Made the Red Man Red, on my Peter Pan record.
Because the only thing left for that first civilization in our valley were pottery shards and musket balls and arrowheads, pieces of which you could find if you knew where to dig.
Because the only real Indians were the few descendants of those few who were allowed to stay, or those who stayed hidden in the mountains.
Because all kids like to claim they have Indian blood.
Because me Chinese, me play joke, me put pee-pee in your Coke.
Because my dad's Japanese, my mom's Chinese, and I'm both.
Because how many Polacks does it take to screw in a light bulb?
Because kids turn their lips out and stuck their tongues flat against their upper lips.
Because the only non-white person in our church, which is where the majority of our family's socialization happened, was part Mexican.
Because the only black people I knew were from TV and magazines and therefore mythical.
The Huxtables.
The Jeffersons.
The family from Good Times, Whitney Houston.
Vanessa Williams.
Jordan and Dorset and Magic and Rice.
Gordon from Sesame Street.
Fat Albert from Fat Albert. Sanford and Son.
Carl Pickens, the wide receiver from the town where I went to school, who ended up playing for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Because I'm Marina.
Because one of my favorite books as a kid was the story of Little Black Sambo. Because I could ask an adult to read it to me and not blink an eye. Because I thought the story was about tigers who take Sambo's clothes and then chase each other around a tree and turn to butter that Sambo takes to his mother Black Mumbo, who makes tiger-striped pancakes which are eaten by Black Sambo and Black Jumbo.
Because the word generally in the Confederate flag made me think of an orange Dodge Charger.
Because a cross-stitched picture of a black man eating watermelon hung on a wall in our home.
Because my grandfather, a man who lost the tops of his last 3 of his fingers when he was 3 years old and refused to move his hand from a chopping block where his sister was cutting wood, and then grew up to be a dentist who served as his own mechanic and took trips out west to ride horseback through canyons he read about so often in the Zane grade books he collected, used the N-word.
Because when I watched the NBA in his presence, he stood there jingling coins in his pocket and said, I don't know why anybody would want to sit there and watch a bunch of N-words throw a ball around.
Because watercolors of black women in head wraps holding white babies hang in the houses of white people I know. Because there's this cute little figurine of a black boy in overalls toting a sack of cotton on my grandmother's windowsill.
Because when I first read Flannery O'Connor's A Good Man Is Hard to Find and reached the scene where the grandmother sees a poor child in a doorway and says, oh, look at that cute little pickaninny, it felt familiar to me, like something somebody I knew would say and had said.
Because I can still imagine plenty of people I know saying it.
Because my other grandmother, when I said I was dating a Korean girl, said, now Koreans, aren't they the ugliest of all the Asians?
Because we make up stories about people who aren't us.
Because the majority of my students are white girls.
Because a kid in my class wrote an interesting reflection about not knowing what he was going to do with his life, and that this pressure was somehow exacerbated by the fact that he was the only son of Asian immigrants, and that this sometimes felt as if they had sacrificed everything for him, and that he'd ultimately be a great disappointment. But when I asked if he thought that he might learn something, were he to write about all that, he wrinkled his nose and said no, he didn't want to write about being Asian, because writing about being Asian was so cliche, so expected. He just wanted to write about being a guy, a regular guy. It may not surprise you to learn that this student didn't much like it when I quoted whoever it was who said art should comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable, Because before Phil Collins, the band Genesis was overly complicated and like super weird. But then Phil Collins arrived and dumbed that shit down. Made it simpler, better, and easier to like. The kind of music that was like pouring warm milk